So I've gone ahead and opened up a famous quote for editing. And we are going to be adding some tool tips and animation to this page. And this is what it looks like at this point. And what we're going to do first is add the text that will be the tip. And then we're going to add the styling. And what we want is for when the user points at any of these quotes, we want a little tip to display showing the person who made the quote. So that is the goal. And our first step is going to be to add a span tag. And inside the span tag, we are going to put the name of the person or philosopher who actually made the quote. And that's going to be down here in the HTML section. And so here we've got a paragraph with the class set to tip. And you'll notice that we have not styled that yet. And then we've got our quote. And right before the closing paragraph, so right after the text and the period, this is where we are going to put our span tag. And then we're going to put the person who made the quote. And we're going to do that for each one of these. And we got one more. And I'm going to save this. And right now, this is not much of a tooltip, okay? Because it's actually displaying the text because we have not done any styling for this yet. So our next step is going to be to add the styling so that this actually displays as a tool tip. First thing we're going to do is add some styling for the class set to tip. Now you'll notice that the class set to tip is only in the paragraph tag. That is the only place that we are going to put it. So we are going to prefix our tip class .tip with a P for paragraph, and that limits where it can be used. And we are going to set the position to relative and the z-index to 100. And the position set to relative means that when we are pointing at a particular quote, the tip needs to display within that paragraph. Okay, so the tip display is going to be relative to where we are pointing. Okay, and the z-index of 100 just means that the tip needs to always display on the top. It's not going to be very useful if it's below the graphic or below the box. So that is formatting the tip once it's displayed. And for the initial state of the tip, when we first load the page, we do not want the text to show. So we do not want Wayne Gretzky, Chinese proverb, Confucius. That should not display. So we are going to hide it. So it's going to be P tip and span. Okay, so it's looking for a paragraph with a class of tip and a span tag inside. Okay, and once it finds that, we're going to set the display to none because we do not want these to display. Now I'm going to save this because this is going to hide that text for the tip. Now you no longer see that simply because we said if it's a span tag inside a paragraph with the tip class, do not display the text. So at this point, we have set up everything except for what we want to happen when we're actually pointing at these quotes. And that is our next step. Oops, let's see, you got to go in the right section here. Okay, so this is going to be p.tip hover. So when we're pointing at the quote, okay, then what we want to happen to our span section is what we are going to style. Okay, so when we are hovering, meaning we're looking at the paragraph with the tip class applied, and we are pointing at it. What do we want to happen with the text inside span? Okay, that is what we need to style. And what we want to happen is, first of all, we want it to display. So we're going to do display block. And the position for that is going to be absolute. And it's going to be absolute within this little paragraph. Okay, this is within the paragraph itself. We want the top to be set to negative 10 px, so it'll be up a little bit. We will set the left at 10%. We want the width of the tip box to be 75%. And so what 75% means there is 75% of the container. The container is the paragraph. So we want the tip to be 75% of that. And as far as the left and the top settings, I'm going to keep those in so you can see what it looks like, and then I'm going to comment them out so you can see why we need them. Because quite often with CSS, you have the settings that you think are going to look good, and you have to tweak them and move things around. So let's see, we've got the width at 75%, and then we are going to add a little bit of padding so that the philosopher or the person who made the quote isn't right up against the edge of the box. So we'll do 3 pixels of padding all the way around. And then so we can see the box a little better, we are going to make it 1 pixel border that's solid and black. So it's going to be a really thin line. And there's a couple other settings we're going to do, but I'm going to save this. We're going to reload so you can see as we are going through what this looks like. Okay, so you can see we do have a need to fill this in with color. And that is what we're going to do next. And we're going to throw in a gradient background. It's going to be a linear gradient. And we're going to use Peach Puff, which is one of my personal favorites, and white. And let's save that. And you'll notice that when we reload, it's going to be way easier to see now. Okay, and you can see that it is about 75% as far as the width of the paragraph goes. And let me show you what it looks like if we get rid of the top and the left settings. So I'm just commenting them out. Okay, so you can see where it's positioning the tip. And so by doing a negative 10 pixels on the top, it moved it up. And then by setting the left at 10%, it moved it in, okay, or it moved it towards the right. Okay, so I'm going to take those comments out. And we can use top and left. And I also commented out the width too, but we can use top and left because we have the position set to absolute. And let's see, the other thing we're going to do is make sure our text is centered. Now let's save and we'll reload. And that looks very good. Okay, so at this point, I think our tip box looks great. And we're going to move on and add a web font. So that font that we downloaded, Caviar Dreams, we are going to be using that. And so, oops, I'm going to move body down. We're going to add that right up here at the top. And so we're using @font face. And we'll say the font family is Caviar. And so basically for this font family, you're going to be giving it, whatever name you want to call the font. So we've downloaded the font. We have it in a font folder. We're going to be uploading that font folder. And this name that we have assigned here is the name we are going to refer to the font throughout our CSS. So we also have to tell it the source, so it knows where to look for this font. And that is in our fonts folder, and it's called Caviar Dreams .ttf. Okay, so anytime we want to use that font, we are going to change the font family of the element to Caviar. So in the body, we're going to add font family, and we're going to add Caviar. And then if there's some problem with that, we'll do a generic script font. Okay, and we're going to add this a couple other places, so I'm going to copy this. And for heading 1, we're going to add it there as well. And I believe that is it, those 2 spots. So let's save that. And we're going to go out and reload our page. And you should notice that the font has changed because now we're using that Caviar font. Now our next task here is going to be to display a little goldfish in the lower left corner of our little quote box. And we already downloaded it. It's the goldfish.ping file. And so we're going to be adding to the CSS in our quote box class. So here's our little quote box class. And it really doesn't matter where you add this. I mean, you can add it up near the top, you can add it on the bottom. Shouldn't matter where you put it. But the first thing we're going to do is round the corners by 30 pixels. So let's save that. And we'll load this up so you can see it. Okay, so that's our first little change. Next change, we're going to add a little shadow effect to the quote boxes. And that is a box shadow property. And we'll do 2 pixels and make it black. saving, and I'm going to reload. And you can kind of see that. And then the last thing that we're going to do is do a little clip on the border box. And we're going to go ahead and add that. Let's see, background, clip, border box. And we're going to go ahead and make the modifications for adding the fish. And it's going to be background, URL. And this is in our media folder, and it's called goldfish.ping. Background position. So we want this little fish to go at the bottom on the left-hand side. So we're going to say left and bottom. And we're going to make it a lot smaller because if we don't adjust the size, it's going to be a giant man-eating fish, not a cute little goldfish. So we're going to make it 50 pixels by 50 pixels, which is pretty darn small. Okay, and let's save. And let's reload. Okay, immediately you can see we've got a couple issues with little fish. Although it's quite cute, it is now obscuring our text. So obviously we need to make some more changes. So we are going to say background repeat, no repeat. And that will help. And then we're also going to set the background origin to padding box. Now, what background origin padding box does is the background image starts from the upper left of the padding edge, the edge of the padding. So let us save. And let's reload. Okay, so that is exactly where we want little fishy to go. And we have our little tooltip, but we have lost the lovely peach puff. So let us get back the color. So we are going to take our background color and we're going to move that below the image. Let's see, I'll put it way down here. And then let me save this. And that is how we want it to look. So let's go through these settings. So we have overflow set to auto. That means if the boxes get really small and we can't see everything, then we are going to get scroll bars. We have a border radius, which gives us the rounded edges. We added the box shadow. We added a background clip of border box, which extends the background color to where the border is. We have inserted the goldfish. We put the goldfishy at the bottom left. We adjusted the size so we don't have monster fish. We told it not to repeat fishy within the paragraph. And the origin of the fish, it basically is positioned starting in the upper left, and then this background position kind of moved it. But its starting point is upper left. We set the color of the text to black, the background color to peach puff. We added some padding. We centered our text. We added a little margin, and we have a Z index of 10 so that the quote box is on top of any other content in that location. Okay, that was a lot. Okay, and at this point, our quote and tip box are done. Now we are going to keep this open because we are going to add a little animation to this next.